Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice, and this is day 25 of RPG A Day 2021. Today's prompt is fresh, so let's get started. If this is your first time here, smash that subscribe button and give us a like. Today we're going to be talking about the word fresh and what this means to me. So a lot of times when you get into running, games of tabletop RPGs for the first time, you think that it needs to be a fresh, innovative idea. And you apply this to a lot of things. You don't want to railroad players because, you want them to feel like they can make choices and dictate the world. And you put all this other pressure on yourself like, oh, I got to come up with these fresh ideas for creatures. And I don't want to just use the same old boring monsters like goblins at first level. You think of all these things and how you have to come up with this elaborate story, and you start writing stuff, and before you know it, you've got all this stuff written that isn't going to actually make it into your game. You don't have to come up with the fresh, new, big idea. All you have to do is create conflict and react to your players. Whether you're doing it in a sandbox or you're doing it in a little bit more of a railroad, ultimately, focus more on if your players are having fun. Focus on the things that they like. Don't be afraid to steal ideas from TV shows, movies, games you've played, video games, tabletop RPGs you've played. I take ideas from previous games that I've played in many times. I've used traps that DMs have used on me. Now, when I do this stuff, I usually make sure nobody that was in that game is at my table. Because it will feel fresh, possibly, to this new group. I love taking ideas from all sorts of different things. TV show, The Dragon Prince, for example, has a lot of cool things in that, and I take stuff for my homebrew world all the time. In fact, in world building, I steal ideas all over the place. And the thing is, though, when you do it, change things. Don't just change a name. Tweak it enough that it doesn't even feel the same. That if somebody were to think of your world, they're not going to say, oh, that's exactly like what they did on that show, or that's what they did in this comic. Now, they might make some connections, and they might even make connections to something you never even saw, and that's okay. You can do this. But, if you really think about it, there's so many things out there, mechanics for game systems, stories that have been written. How many times have we seen the same formulas used for TV shows and movies over and over again? You ever watched a movie and been like, oh, this is going to happen? And then it happens? Because again, it's been done before. But it works. People understand it. You don't need to insult people's intelligence to try and come up with a new idea. Sometimes just doing what works is the best course of action. And so that's what I would recommend to you, if you're trying to, run a homebrew game and, you're trying to make it as fun and as exciting as you can for your group. Don't worry about trying to come up with fresh ideas that you've never seen before. You're going to spend so much time trying to do this. I'm not saying if you come up with a fresh idea not to do it, because you should. But don't spend a lot of time poring over this stuff that you don't need to do. Another thing I like to do, another little tip here is I love buying adventure paths and modules and all that. And most of the time, especially until recently, I would use those books to get ideas for encounters or puzzles or even plot stuff. How to give certain hooks. I used to love reading the books for things like that. And it helped me in those regards. I've used the beginning of Horde of the Dragon Queen with the attack on Greenest many times in campaigns, in a variety of campaigns that had nothing to do with the Horde of the Dragon Queen, because I like that intro of throwing players into combat and letting them navigate the tough situations going on and having to make choices of where to go and who to save and who to do this with. So that's something I've liked doing quite a bit. I've taken things from Out of the Abyss. I've taken things from Princess of the Apocalypse. I've taken ideas from a variety of books that I own. And to me, it's always made my homebrew stuff that much better. Now, I change things. I change the monsters. I change what the story is about. I change, the amount of monsters. At the end of the day, a lot of the time, it doesn't end up feeling the same. When I've done the Horde of the Dragon Queen one, it does kind of feel the same because it's a mass combat inside of a city. But outside of that, when I take an encounter from something, it usually doesn't feel the same. I'll change the map, I'll change the creatures, I'll change the mechanisms, I'll change what the trap is exactly. I'll change a lot of things with it. But it inspires the idea that I end up going with. And that's what I think makes it a good encounter or a good session. So with that, those are just some of my thoughts. I'd love to hear what you think, whether you agree, disagree. Again, would love to hear what you think in the comments below. This was Master the Game. I am Juice. Game on.